Most firms survive, the best ones scale. Welcome to the Managing Partners Podcast, where law firm leaders learn to think bigger. I'm Kevin Daisy. Let's jump in. All right, we're recording. All right, Vanessa, why don't you kick us off and tell us a awesome story about our topic today, maybe in regards to one of your clients.
Yeah, the whole working harder isn't the pathway to profit, right? So this is an elder law attorney. Her name is Susie, amazing woman out of Colorado. And she came to me a couple of years ago, very, very stressed out, close to tears, with her own words, like, I'm burning out, I'm losing the plot. I heard you speak. I now know I need your help. And so, as you know, with those initial conversations, it's kind of like, okay, tell me what's going on. And typically somebody is ready to, at that point, kind of dump it all on the table because they've finally pulled the plug on, I'm going to get some help. She was running $1 million firm, right? 7-figure firm. So, looked by all intents and purposes, doing great work, looked like she had it all together. She had a lot of part-time team members. And I share that because that was actually one of the problems, but kind of a lot of fractional part-time team members. She was spending most of her days babysitting team, trying to pull it all together. Not getting her own legal work done until pretty much, 5 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's gone home, and finally she's catching up. She's working weekends, evenings. When I said, how many hours are you working a week? I was like, it sounds like you're doing at least 60 plus. And she laughed and she was like, if only I was doing 60, like that would be a really good thing. Okay. Financials, she didn't have time to look at the financials. And then she also had a team member that was holding her hostage. This is when I use that term a lot with our clients, but they're really holding the owner hostage. And it can be many things. Either they've got just a really bad attitude and they're kind of like upsetting other people, but they're typically a really good producer. And so there's something there, perhaps they're responsible for a whole book of business or a whole area of the practice. And so the owner gets held hostage, even though there's a lot of negativity, a lot of having to clean up messes. There's often the money piece linked. And she had that going on as well. And this particular team member was on their way out the door, walking out with a big part of the business. So whole lot of things going on. And it, really Susie's words were at the time. And I want to share this because I think it's the real warning signals. Like it really is like, don't go down this path. It starts with, if only I could work harder and get ahead of this, everything would be okay again. It's kind of like, if only I could find the energy to kind of sit down on the weekend and work through this, I'll be on the other side. I can figure it out. If only. And it always starts with that. And my words to Susie was like really warning flags here. My background was in stress management, emotional intelligence, burnout. I'm like, you are on a very slippery slope. So that's the one thing that you've got to stop right now. And secondly, this wishful thinking or delusional thinking that if you could only do something, it'll all fall back into place, doesn't work. Your firm actually needs a complete reset. We've got to kind of reestablish like the foundation and the ground rules and the values and everything, like reset so that you can put yourself onto a different path. Good news, and I'm sure we'll jump into some of the how-tos, but probably within a year and possibly even less than that, frankly, Susie had the team member went. We did a little bit of, cleaning up and mitigation risk around, the business that also went out the door. Susie's down to working 4.5-day work weeks. The whole team is now, they close their doors, I think, at 1 o'clock on a Friday. So it's a team perk as well. She actually added another 200,000 in revenue in that same year. Her profitability is now increasing. And I think the one thing that she would say is like her stress level. I mean, she just looks different. She shed actually about 50 pounds when all of this went on. So she's kind of getting her body back in check, her health back in check, and she just looks physically different. And she's absolutely loving her firm now, but she's loving the new firm that she's running.
That's amazing. That's an awesome story. Yeah, that employee you're talking about, through some other things, I think maybe the book Traction, some other areas that I've learned it, but it basically called that a terrorist. They're high performer, but they're not a cultural fit,
Yep.
and they can cause all kinds of problems and cause other people to leave and damage the culture of the firm. I mean, it's easy to want to keep those people because of their performance or the book of business or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you gotta let them go. You gotta get them out of there.
Totally. And it's hard, right? It's something unfortunately we deal with a lot. Sometimes in firms, it's been partners. I mean, this was more of an employee associate, so somewhat easier, but sometimes it's been partners, right? They've formed it together, and then there's one that's frankly become toxic,
Yeah.
not wanting to do what they do. But yes, there typically is no way forwards through this because somebody doesn't want to make the changes. And as you said, not a cultural fit. But on the other side of it, the good news is, oh my god, it gets so good on the other side of this.
Yeah, sometimes we make hard decisions, but they're the ones we gotta make, so well, awesome story. Yeah, we're gonna jump into more, about that, but thank you for sharing that, and go Susie, keep at it. So, good to hear that. Well, I wanted to make sure everyone listening, tuning in on the show here, you get to know our guests and what we're gonna be talking about today. But Vanessa Shaw here is with us, and she has the Business Growth Academy, and also, I love this, is the Get Rich Without Being a Bitch podcast. So make sure you go check that out and check out her company as well. And at the end here, we'll share how you can best connect with her, and of course, as always, if you want an introduction connection, I can make that by email, LinkedIn, whatever. So tell me a little bit more about your business and how you work with attorneys, and just your story, how you got started in
Yeah.
this.
So big, quick backstory was I kind of just fell into attorneys. Like 18 years ago now. So it's a long time ago. In fact, I say 18, I think it's getting closer to 20, but you know how those years go by so quickly. And I was health coaching, actually the wife of a managing partner of a regional section of a $1 billion law firm in Europe. It's very well known. And he heard me, kind of overheard me and said, "Hey, could you help me? I've got a lot of stress. I want to be like really in peak performance and kind of love your energy and everything." And I was like, "I guess so, sure." So this was very much in a health coaching kind of lane as I was in at the time. Worked with him for 6 months. He was loving the results that he was getting, and then said, "Hey, I don't know if you know, but I'm responsible for a lot of people in this firm and we're growing and the partners have a lot of stress. They're burning out, that we've had some health challenges. I'd like to bring you in and basically pitch a concept of a coaching program." So I believe that my claim to fame is that I probably pioneered the very first ever virtual coaching program in a major law firm, because this was in the day of Skype was too advanced for them. And of course, as we say this, Skype is closing its doors. But
Yeah, right now.
coaching back then, Kevin, I never saw my clients. They never saw me. I pitched it as virtual because I had young kids at the time. And I was like, I don't want to be running all around Europe. I know it sounds glamorous, but I knew full well that it would get old very quickly. And so that was, really helping the partners be at their best. And then the partners would, of course, we'd start with kind of health and well-being and just what was going on. I was like their personal perk, if you like. It was like safe space to speak, this person to speak to. But of course, it morphed into business after a while. They kind of like sort some things out, and then it was, God, I got this team member, or we've got this great opportunity. There's an opportunity to set up an office in China or Russia or all these places. So I ended up being their executive coach for quite a few years. After that kind of, ended, I was like, I don't want to do big law again. Everybody said you should go, you should find another big law firm, launch this again. And frankly, I didn't want to. I felt like I was a very small cog in a very big system. And I was honestly a secret weapon for many of them as well. So they didn't want to refer me to other people. Sometimes they'd even say, "You can't come into the office. Like, I want to meet you in another place." So it was, I don't know, there was an energy around it. It was fun. I was really well paid. Certainly had some golden handcuffs at one point because I knew my heart was kind of leaving it, but the money was really good. And so I went into, coaching small business owners. And I actually went specifically women because the women in the big law firm were the ones that I really bonded with the most. I felt like they had so many challenges. And I was trying to avoid attorneys. It's really the truth. And then I think people just found me through connections, and they kind of knew that I had this thing in the past. And so women attorneys kept showing up. And I've now had to take the advice that I give my own clients, which is really in specializing and niching down. And I'll be honest, I resisted it as well. Because I was like, no, but I love variety. And all the things that my clients say to me, I was using the same, the same excuses. But we just discovered that, we really know the law firm model. 20 years is a lot of experience and expertise. And it's also bringing some of some of the really good stuff from big law into small law firms. Women attorneys are a ton of fun to work with. They're sharp as heck. The women that we work with as well are really, and this is probably the edge where it's become so fun for me, they're wanting to disrupt and do things differently. They've been in the male dominated firms. They've come from that space. They've gone into their own firms because, we were saying at the beginning, they want to create a different culture.
Yeah.
They want to have the freedom, frankly, to take their kids to a ballet class, or, take off in the middle of the week, and go skiing with their son, or whatever it is. So I'm loving that we're kind of building firms in very different ways, and frankly, really disrupting that pattern of, you don't have to keep working so hard. You can actually turn a law firm into a business, which is really what we help with. And so that the owners have a lot more freedom, lifestyle, profit, and they're frankly doing the work that only they should be doing.
Heck yeah, I love it. Yeah, so yeah, a lot of my guests on the show and clients of mine, women, have done some of the most unique things I've seen in the legal space, and are some of the hardest chargers I know. So, but they tend to do things different and find a way to be again completely different than the firms in their space. So that's interesting. What brought you? So you're now in Arizona in the U.S. So you're from the UK. What happened there?
It's
When did that
actually,
transition happen?
no, I know, because it's probably the number one question I get asked. How? Why? So actually, going back to my days with the big law firm, and I'm telling you, I was really getting into coaching around some really big meaty topics, like, yeah, we're going to open up a new region. One of the guys, I loved working with him. He was one of the partners, one of the younger partners, wanted to. It was actually out in the Far East, and he did do this, but he had young kids. He wanted to take his wife and his young kids out to the Far East and really live this sort of expat lifestyle, and setting up a whole new part of the business. And so I find myself coaching these guys. And again, on the whole, it was, my practice was 90% men at the time, guys to do these big things. And I honestly had to look at myself and kind of go, a couple of years in, like, wow, I'm coaching them to do big things and pursue their dreams. What am I doing? Like, I was all of a sudden starting to feel out of integrity. And it really sparked something in me. I'd been coming to the States, as I was skilling up myself and going down many different paths with, like, my coaching skills and credentials and everything. I found myself coming to California, which of course is always kind of, you know, always out there and like on the cutting edge of things, and especially personal development. And my husband is also American, so that helped. But he had a big career back in Geneva, Switzerland, and I started to get the bug to come to the States. I was like sitting with this for about 2 years saying, there's no way I can get my kids out of schools in Switzerland. My husband had, a big career. He'd actually told me never to, the one thing he said, don't ever ask me is to leave Switzerland or Europe, because he loved it there. That was his dream. And here I am kind of going, no, this is really, I felt such a calling to come to the States. So long story short, I did get him on board,
It's
present
like,
the
don't ever ask me. And you're like,
business.
well,
Yeah, I had to present like the business case and why it made sense. And it was going to be a 3-year plan for us to move the family. And it was going to coincide with the end of his career in the UN. And I ended up making it all happen within 11 months. So
less than a year.
it was less than a year. Now, he
Love it.
actually did stay behind in Europe, so he had to stay behind. He kind of commuted Switzerland to Phoenix for nearly 2 years. And I came over here in 2012.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, cool. Well, cool story. And you saw something you wanted and you made it happen. Whether he was on board or not. It's like,
Well, he was on
well,
board, thankfully. Listen, we're celebrating 30 years of marriage next month. So in June, whenever this goes live. So yeah, we made it through there, and it's part of the, fun story of, I think, life together, and frankly, just doing things differently. That time then we think we can't do something, yet we feel such a pull towards doing it. Right. I'm a firm believer in, and frankly, that's a lot of where our coaching starts. That desire and that pull from within is what we need to heed, particularly when it starts to get louder and it's just not going away.
yeah. And you need to be in a position to act on that, right? If you're working 80 hours a week and running around like crazy and your firm owns you, it's just going to be hard to have those moments and to act on them. Right.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, cool story. I'm glad you're here. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into, the topic about, why working harder is not the path to more profit. And I can be a testament to that as well. But I had some fun, kind of quick fire questions my team threw over to my desk. So we're going to go through them.
Okay,
We're going to have a little fun.
let's
We're
go.
going to mix it up a little bit. I'm interested to see the answers. I mean, it'll be fun. And everyone listening, Vanessa has no clue what I'm going to ask her.
I don't.
Oh, and these are soft. These are softball fun questions, but this is a good one. This is actually in line with like kind of our topic a little bit. If you had 1 extra hour every day, how would you spend it?
Today's episode is brought to you by Answering Legal. Now, I just switched my company, Array Digital, over to Answering Legal, and it's made my life a whole lot easier. If I can't get to the phone, their 24/7 virtual receptionists take the call and take them through a full intake process, so we never miss new business again. Now, Answering Legal has been at this for more than a decade, and they specialize in answering phone calls for law firms like yours. They even have a brand new, easy-to-use app, and they integrate with all the top legal softwares and platforms. So, for my listeners today, we actually have a special deal of a 400-minute free trial offer of Answering Legal services that you can try out by going to answeringlegal.com/array. You can also call 631-437-4803 and use special code DAISY. That's my last name, DAISEY. So go check them out and let's get back to the show.
That is an interesting question because I actually have a lot of free time. So it really is an interesting question. I mean, my love is tennis. So that would probably be like, working with a tennis pro or something like real luck. I mean, I play a lot of tennis.
Nice.
But yeah, like if that had the hour and I could like work with a pro, yeah, that would be cool every single day. I like that. Yeah.
That's cool. I've never been good at golf, and I've always wanted to get better. And I don't really have time usually to go play because it's like an all-day thing. But I did a pro lesson this past week in Palm Beach, and it was very eye-opening
Yeah.
and helped me a lot. But that's just like one lesson for 1 hour,
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. So yeah, I like that. All right, awesome. All right, what's your go-to coffee order?
I'm very boring with coffee because I'm not a
So
big coffee drinker. I'm a tea drinker because I'm a Brit, But of course, but my go-to really boring Starbucks is a tall almond milk latte.
okay,
Yeah, nothing
pretty
fancy.
straightforward. I'm black coffee.
Yeah,
Done.
I have admiration. I kind of admire people. I've always thought people that sit down and drink a black coffee is actually really cool. And particularly like in Europe, you see them like with these little, like really little espressos, and it's like the Italians, and they put it together and it's just that little couple of sips. I've looked at that and I admire it from afar. But the thought of me drinking that is like, well, no, it's not happening.
It's funny because when I order a coffee anywhere, they're like, okay, room for cream. No. You want sugar in there? No. Like they're like confused. Like what? There's anything else in there? No.
Black coffee. Easy.
It took me a while. I used to do cream and all this stuff and sugar, and I was so used to it. And then one day, I was just like, I don't want all this stuff in there, and I just kind of switched to black coffee. So I don't know, weird, but that's me. Okay, here's another cool one, and then we'll get back to our normal talk. If you got a billboard in your town, so Phoenix or where in Arizona, what would it say? A billboard for yourself for 24 hours.
Oh, that's a really good question.
I know, right?
Gosh.
I don't know what
Um,
I would say either.
yeah, and this is a really good question. I probably want it to be quite provocative. My mind's going into lots of different things. I think it comes back to I wouldn't want it like necessarily for me, but it could be representing like the Business Growth Academy, for example. But I think it would probably say something like women's financial empowerment is the next level of freedom, something like that, because that's really the core of what I think that comes down to the core of why we do what we do, because I deeply, deeply believe that when women are empowered financially and have more financial resources, the world generally will be a better place.
Love it. Awesome. Good answer. All right, cool. Well, let's kind of dive into a little bit more to and when I was talking to Vanessa before, because I always meet with my guests prior, and she speaks on lots of topics, and she's got her podcast, and again, go check her out and her website for the Business Growth Academy. But one of the topics she sent over to me was, why working harder doesn't lead to more profit, and so I was like, well, I like that one. That's an interesting one because we're all wired to. Well, I actually had this conversation today with my president here. And sometimes outworking people, can be a way to get ahead. But I like the fact that it was like doesn't lead to more profit. And at some point you can't work harder.
Mm.
You're gonna burn yourself out. And if you're not putting things in place and delegating, you're not going to just see more profit out of it. Eventually you're gonna run out of time. So I was just interested to kind of know the nature of kind of that topic, unless I just wanted to kind of dive into, you know,
Yeah.
how you use that. And when you're talking with your women clients, what does that look like for you?
Totally. And there's lots of aspects to it, right? But I want to give like some really good practical takeaways. I think, Kevin, you just touched on it, right? We are so programmed that, working busy is like a badge of honor. The busier you are, kind of the better you are, the more successful you're deemed to be. And like that's something it's very prevalent. That's probably one of the big differences I've seen moving to the States. That is very, very prevalent in America. Europeans definitely have a different relationship to work and free time and leisure time and lifestyle, whereas Americans definitely are banging that drum of the work harder. Now, and again, I love like effort and yes, putting in the hours. And when you've really got to put your head down, there's a time and place. What often happens though is it tips a balance. And as you said, there's a point where you can't work any harder. You can't put any more hours in. And for me, I look at this, through the lens of energy, right? It's like really, how are you spending your energy? We've only got so much of it. If we're spending a lot of that time in energy draining tasks, which is one of the places I kind of start with my women, it's like you just haven't got the good quality energy for the good stuff, right? If you're like, and get again practically, if you are chasing payments, doing admin, this constant babysitting, perhaps of team members, right? The stuff that is really not the best and highest use of your time, like your energy is drained, which means we don't have the energy for the strategic, visionary, the dreaming. Like you even mentioned it, right? You get so busy, you don't even have the moments to tap into what do I want. And of course, outside of business, I'm a firm believer that, especially in like, why are we doing this anyway in small business and being a business owner? I mean, it's pretty risky. There's a lot involved in it. It's certainly not the easiest thing to be doing. So why are we doing it? Well, most people will say that they're doing it for their loved ones, for the freedom to do things on their own terms, that their kids, they want to set an example, like all of these good things. And yet those are typically the very things that are suffering, right? Because they're going home and like kids and spouses are certainly not getting the best parts of them. We won't even talk about friends because that's often a heck, Vanessa, if I had time for friends, like I don't even have time for like. So I think that's where we kind of start with it. We've got to start to rethink this about like tap back into why did you go into business in the first place? And now let's reconnect with that, probably changed and evolved, and start to re-engineer, kind of reverse engineer what you're doing. So one of my favorite questions in this kind of like the work harder is, and I always say this to my business owners, you won't get what you want, you get what you tolerate. Like you will get what, where your standards are and what you tolerate. So we can all say, yeah, I want to have a shredded, ripped body. But if I'm tolerating drinking soda and eating fast food all day long, right, we can see that there's just going to be a mismatch. So one of the first places that we suggest starting is just doing literally a list, a brain dump. It's not a very glamorous term, of all the tolerations, because starting there, and it is not uncommon that my women are like, how long have you got, Vanessa? How many am I supposed to find? I've found 70. I'm like, great, because now you understand why energetically you're feeling so burned out and burdened. And some of those things, again, we've got a lot of stories attached to them. We tolerate things because we think we have to. We tolerate things because this is the way it's always been done. We tolerate things because we've never even stopped to question it. But I'm all around like, let's raise standards. And you've got to be now the business leader, not the attorney anymore. We're going to shift into being like the business leader and the visionary that is no longer tolerating certain things. Right. So again, like, we're raising standards, we're raising, improving like discipline and consistency. And it means that, if my clients go through that process, just that one thing alone every quarter, like, they're constantly up leveling.
I can see that. Yeah. I mean, a lot of things you said in the beginning there too. It's like, yeah, you're doing it for this or that or money or family or, it's almost like those are future promised things, right?
Yes.
In your mind, you're like, I'm doing this because I get to do all this. And when you start a company, I started when I was 23. Um, Things definitely don't go the way you expected, and now you're on this journey, and you're stuck in this journey, if you will, of trying to be profitable, and then pay for bills, and then now you got to deal with clients, and then and then you're just 10 years go by or 20 years go by, right? And those things are no longer, or they're neglected, or they're not things that you're focused on, and you're just now stuck in the work.
And
I
that's
see
the
a lot of
piece,
owners like
right?
that.
And that is that stuckness like there, that's the grind. That's the piece that is really that's the piece that often leads to burnout, right? It's just doing the same old, not being able to really shift. Your role doesn't evolve. I mean, the people, let's face it, that you and I are working with, they're really smart people. Really smart. And you spent a lot of money and a lot of time going to law school and keeping up with, continuing education and everything. That's what I would say is like, you're evolving. You've evolved a lot since going to law school, but like, your business and your practice, well, typically it's more of a practice when they come to us. It's not a business, right? Which is the
Yeah.
whole point. It's like, it hasn't evolved. You're still taking on every client that walks through the door because you think you have to, because you don't have a system or you don't have a sales process. You're aspiring to, every single woman that I speak to is aspiring to better clients, better cases. And they're confident about the work that they do. They've got a lot of experience and they're like, yeah, I want meatier things, right? You don't want to be doing the stuff that is just, you could do blindfolded. Like, where's the challenge, right? And the intellectual stimulation in that. So,
Spot on.
right? So it's like, business has got to evolve, your client work has got to evolve. Oftentimes it's also back to, and this is back to the not working harder, right? It's the smarter piece. When you give yourself permission for that to evolve and like start to embrace that, guess what? You can be working with far less clients and earning far more money. Right. So now all of a sudden we've freed up some time. You can, or we can be charging the fees that you actually want to be charging, but you haven't dared to, right? Up until this point, we can quickly run the math on that. And it's not uncommon that, even if it shaves off 10 hours a week, 10 hours a week,
That's
I find
huge.
it easy for me to find 10 hours a week in a law firm. Like, it's easy, like where it's just being spent in the wrong place. But it's like, that's 40 hours a month. And, think how that can be put back into, frankly, family, kids, free time, strategic time, business development. There's so many things, but that for me is yeah, let's work really smarter and not harder. Bragging about having 100 cases sitting on your desk is not the badge of honor for that it needs to be, but that if you've got 30, what we call kind of champagne clients that are really paying you well, that respect your work expertise and refer you to other clients, now you're working a lot smarter and life becomes fun again.
Yeah. Plus, if you grow, focus on the business side of things, and I know a lot of lawyers that they don't even practice law. They decided to be a business owner more than,
Mhm.
and they enjoy that more. But if you put the right people in place and you grow the right way and you focus on things, you can scale and have lots of cases, but maybe you cherry pick a few that you want to work on. You know, you grow a
Totally.
team to handle the workload. So I think that's another kind of like decision point that I see often is, do they want to be a better lawyer or do they want to like be more of a business owner and maybe be a lawyer when they want to be a lawyer? And I got some that are just like, I'm not a lawyer at all anymore. I just keep my license and I'm a CEO. So I think, making that decision, I think is an important one too.
It's key, yeah, and I would say the majority of our women, they fall into that category, right? They're like, as you said, the cherry picked. I'd like to do, a handful. I want to keep my hand in. Sometimes that's the initial, and that could be a stepping stone. Some of them are just like, get me out of this. Yeah, I want to be the CEO. Like, I'm going to be the CEO of my law firm. Like, okay, let's go. But interestingly enough, women are a lot more hesitant to hire than men are. So statistically, I don't know exactly why that is. I can hazard a guess. I do think women, again, kind of societally, we've been programmed to do it all. Again, kind of rewarded for that in an unhealthy way. Look after your aging patients, parents, kids. Like you kind of do it all. You do the work things. So there is something that women tend to be hesitant about hiring, and yet we also know that women make really good leaders. And they've got some just natural skill sets where they can build really great teams. So that's
A hundred
again
percent.
that's something else that we see as well, that once our women kind of go over that, no, I don't want to be doing this all myself. I want to be building a team. And again, it kind of typically comes back to culture. I had she's actually a new prospect yesterday, and it was like, I'm excited to have our follow up conversation because I was like, oh gosh, you're definitely in our sweet spot. And when you speak to those people, but she was speaking about culture. She's grown very quickly. She wants to be less lawyering, a few strategic cases. And she's like, but I want to build a team. I want it very women focused. I want to build a team that's happy. I want a different law firm. Right. And then she's saying, what I really want to do, what I'm passionate about is, coaching and mentoring. Oh, that's what I want to be doing. I'm like, yeah, we have to, this is like, yeah, and you totally can do that. Right. But as you said, you now got to work out and make sure you've got good systems in place for what is that culture that you want to build, right? Who is the right fit? Who is the next hire? And make sure that you've got some pretty robust practices in place for hiring, screening, and good onboarding. Right?
Yeah, I
Good
mean,
people are good people are out there. Everybody was always saying, "Oh, there's nobody." I'm like, most of the firm sizes that we're speaking with, you're not looking to hire 100 people.
yeah. Well, and, as the leader, you need to put those things in place, and you don't want to accidentally kind of build a firm with an accidental culture. You need to put out your vision, what you stand for, your core values. And the thing is, once you build a good firm and you have some great people and you have a good culture, you attract way more A players and the right people for your firm versus having to go find people or do job boards and listings and stuff like that. For me now at this point, we go to our team. Who else do you know that's like you? And they're like, oh, I got like 3 people that would love to work here because they talk about it all the time. Talk about us and our teams. And so it's very easy to find people if you have a good culture and you've built a good business. You put yourself out there, and if you're leading your firm, whether it's just you by yourself or you have a few folks, like start to lay that groundwork and get with your team and say, hey, here's where we're going. And the folks that want to go that direction will continue and support you, and the ones that don't will, self-select themselves out the door. So
Totally. You just use exactly the term that I use. It's like they'll self-select out, and that's a good thing. It's actually a good
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
the bad employee, the bad apple, right? They're gonna not feel comfortable to be around, and they'll find something else to do. And so I think a good culture, nothing beats it because the people that are there protect it more than you do, and because they've found a place that they want to be at and grow. And so if someone's not doing something right, they'll come to you right away and say, hey, something's not right here, or I wasn't happy about what happened over here. So, your team will protect the whole company as a unit, if you got a good culture going. So that's super important. That's interesting about the one prospect you have there. It's I had a young lady on the show recently, and she was like 10 months into starting her new firm, and she wasn't paying herself anything. She kind of saved up, left the firm, already had a bunch of clients coming in the door, already made her first hire, was working on a second hire, was already documenting processes, awesome website, was doing some marketing, was on videos on like TikTok and Instagram. And like, I was like, how long have you been in business? And it's just like 10 months. And I was like, blown away, just blown away. And then she joined a mastermind group, and she joined like a local networking group, and like just doing all the things that usually takes people years to kind of like,
Yeah, it does.
you know,
It doesn't have to take the long time. And I think, one of the things that you've said there as well, like she joined a mastermind group, right? And it's like, that's the piece. If you want to, really cut through some things and get there faster, that the fastest path is never alone, guaranteed. Whether that's masterminding, coaching, peer networks, people that are in that growth mindset, because you learn so much that way. And you can apply it. And as you say, you can like really take things to the next level rapidly.
yeah, to me, that's the only shortcut, because, you read books and they'll have some answers, but then you have to go figure out how to do it and apply it. And it's foreign to you in a lot of cases. So, or if you go to a conference, you learn a ton, it's like a fire hose, and then you got to come back and then you have to execute. And I think a lot of people fail to do that. Not like it's like go to a conference, come back and do one thing, that'd be worth it. But yeah, the mastermind, it's a good time to plug myself. So yeah, I have the Managing Partners podcast, which you're listening to. I have the Managing Partners Mastermind, which is starting here in June, coming up, and I already have like a dozen phenomenal attorneys, owners that are signed up to be in the group. So the power of mastermind it's helped me without a doubt. We've been in masterminds for quite a lot of years at this point, and different ones.
Yeah.
Some are people that don't do anything I do. You learn a lot. Some are people that only do what I do, and you learn a lot. So when I have a mastermind group of attorneys, I'm going to learn a lot, and it's going to be my group. But everyone, I'll send out more stuff about that, but it's coming soon, and I'm excited about that. So, but yeah, so spot on. Yeah, join a mastermind. That's just your shortcut.
It is.
It doesn't have to be
Shortcut.
mine. It could be, there's, for the lawyers out there, there's like 8-figure firm. There's law firm alchemy, how to manage a small law firm, fireproof. I mean, there's just so many groups out there, and I recommend a ton of them. You got Brian Glass with their great legal marketing group, and then of course you got Vanessa, or her growth academies for women. So I would say, take a look at what's out there, and there's so much good information from people that are willing
The
to
one
help.
piece I would say, because there are, there's again lots of different things, different stages. It's like coming back to culture. Anybody that is thinking about that, it's like check out the culture, because every mastermind does have a culture, right? Some of them
Absolutely.
are, we call it in the women's world a little bro-ish, and it might be right. Some of them might be too masculine, right? Or like the bro-ish for you. But, frankly, some of the other ones might be just too light and, have too much of an air of, I don't know, spirituality or whatever it is, right? They can run the gamut, but it's really important to just tap into kind of the culture of those masterminds, because you are going to spend a lot of time with people. I've certainly known, I invest heavily in myself, and I've been in places where I've thought, "Oh, I'm in the wrong room," or I'm the furthest along in the room, which is also not good, right? And equally so, don't not always be the furthest behind by a long place. There are some masterminds that you kind of hand over your credit card and you get in, but there's no qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of that for those people that are more advanced, or some things don't make sense. So I think there's such a variety. And coming back to what you said earlier, Kevin, I think looking into just culture of these things, because there is definitely something for everybody.
That's awesome, point. I appreciate that. I never thought about it like that. Yeah, because I just mentioned a ton of groups just in the legal space, and they're all so different. And now that I'm thinking about it, like, yeah, okay, yeah, that one's like this. And so, yeah, I think that's a great point. Like if you're talking about, mastermind or coaching or whatever, it's like, what is it like? What's the culture like? Because the, kind of what Vanessa teaches and helps law firm owners, women owners with, stress and time and all that stuff. You could join a mastermind that's full of go hard, work hard folks. And there's plenty of those law firm owners that I know that just no matter what, you're not going to talk them out of just working 80 hours a week and just that's their deal. And there's masterminds that are like, full of people like that. So I think really taking that consideration, I never thought about that way before. 'Cause I've been on quite a few masterminds. And, how do you pick the right one and which one's going to work for you? I've always been like, one's better than nothing. Get in a group with people. But yeah, then find your way. It might not
Find
be
out the
the perfect
approach.
group. Yeah,
Kevin, I'm tempted to coach you now because just a thought, right? But this is kind of like, and it comes kind of back to really the topic of our conversation. But it's even for you, right? You're launching this, which is super exciting, and you've already got a good bunch of interest. But now for you to think about, yeah, how is yours different, right?
sure. Yeah, 100%.
We all have to think about that in business. It's like, as you said, like, what are those angles, right? Where what we're doing is different, what we stand for is different, what we stand against.
Hey, I mean, you got to think, about the content and like how you're going to do it and what's going to be different about the structure and the meetings and stuff like that. But, not really thinking about, yeah, what's the culture of my group? Who would want to be in my group? Who's not a good fit for my group?
Yeah.
Maybe more lean into that. Who's not a good fit might be a good way to figure out, what. And I know a lot of lawyers right now. I got a client of mine. He's starting his own mastermind. He's a lawyer, very respected, very successful, and his is kind of niched in technology because he's big
Uh-huh.
into like cyber and tech and AI. And he's going to really focus down on lawyers that really want to geek out and kind of grow their firms with technology. So it's a unique kind of little niche he has there. But that's a phenomenal question to ask yourself. If you're joining one or if you're starting one, what's the culture of the group?
So can I share something that I'm up to?
Sure. Oh, yeah. So I want you to share that and how we can connect with you and everyone that's listening. So yeah, go share away.
I know at the beginning I was like, oh, hey, Kevin, we've launched this thing since you and I spoke, which was only about 10 days ago. So it all happened very quickly.
Please
We'll make
share.
sure the link, we'll get you the link for the show notes as well. But back to community, which is really what we're talking about, right? And places to learn and grow and all the rest of it. So we've launched or launching, because it's going live today, the Legal Collective. And it's going to be a community for ambitious women-owned law firms. It's a free community as well. This is not paid, so it's monthly. I love building community. I've done a ton of events as part of my business model. This one's going to be virtual monthly, where I'm going to be teaching for free core concepts around business growth and mindset, which is key. And we're going to have opportunities as well for networking peer to peer to build like referral partners.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's going to be like a real power hour once a month. So the Legal Collective, it's going to be linked to our website as well. And I'm just super excited about it. It was one of those moments of like, this is really what I want to do. And I'm not going to think about all the reasons why not and everything else I've got going. So we're just launching it with whatever fabulous women we launch it with.
That's excellent. Awesome. All right. So it's called the Legal Collective.
The Legal Collective.
Awesome. All right. All my women that are listening, lawyer owners, definitely check this out. Connect with Vanessa and go to the website. Of course, we'll get a link to, we can drop it in the comments or whatever, or always just reach out to me on LinkedIn or wherever you're watching this. Leave a comment. You can tag Vanessa, and we'll make sure you get the right information to check it out. So once a month, this is going to be a certain day of the week, or
Looks like it's Mondays for now. That's kind of a Monday afternoon, my time. Of course, it's like across the country. It'll be later in the day. You know how that goes. But I figured Mondays, because Mondays are typically the day that I always recommend to my clients that should be their kind of CEO day, or working on the firm, not in it. Um,
versus waking up Monday and getting stuck in the grind. And
exactly. And then,
I like that.
don't get your head back up again until Friday afternoon. So Mondays at 2, no, it's 1 p.m. Arizona time.
And that's Is that Pacific?
That's the same as Pacific right now, and it'll be PM right now Eastern time.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. And she hasn't even mentioned it until this show. First time hearing about it.
First time announcing it.
Too bad we're not live right now, but it's all good. So, well, thank you so much for sharing that and your story and how you're helping women lawyers and a lot of great tips here that I'm learning, which is the awesome part about having the podcast, is I get to pick things up and learn on myself. And as I'm about to launch my mastermind, I got some questions to answer. So I appreciate that. And what's the best way for folks, other than the link we'll drop, to connect with you?
Yeah, main website is Business Growth Academy. It's business, doesn't have a the in it, businessgrowthacademy.com. You'll be able to find the Legal Collective on there as well. I'm also on LinkedIn. We've got newsletters going out on LinkedIn, Get Rich Without Being a Bitch podcast. I'm actually just about to record as well a series that's going to be specifically for law firm, but everything that's on the podcast already is relevant across the board. So, and again, same thing. I love it when people reach out and say, "Hey, I heard you on this podcast." And so, yeah, reach out. We're real people, and I love connecting and love making new connections.
Same here. I do too. Yeah. So yeah, if you reach out to her, mention the Managing Partners podcast, and I just appreciate everyone tuning in to listen to me, hopefully not to me, but my guest. And so I thank everyone for being dedicated to the show and listening. So, and to the show too. It's something I never really mentioned before, but if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or whatever, if you would leave us a review, it'd be helpful for us to get some reviews. Never really asked for or pushed that before, but we'd appreciate that. So, all right, Vanessa.
Thank you.
We'll say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much. You stay on with me. Sometimes the files take a second to upload. So we'll say goodbye to everyone else. Have a great day. Check out Vanessa, connect with her, and check out her new monthly group. We'll see you soon.